are
they're leaning in.
Or what?
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified
Yeah.
of some kind of backlash. I mean, you see with Disney now. I mean, Disney, one of the most gay-friendly companies that we've had in a very long time.
And Disney decided to hire the most insufferable girl boss narcissist that exists on Earth, who hates Snow White.
Movie companies are going to look at her and they're going to say box office poison. And a lot of this is due to her behavior leading up to the film's release.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
The live-action adaptation of Snow White ultimately arrived in theaters under a cloud of extraordinary negative buzz, an atmosphere that had been building since Disney unveiled its initial teasers. Once the film hit screens worldwide, audience reactions confirmed that the critical reception was just as grim as the trailers had suggested. Online platforms teemed with overwhelmingly negative ratings, dwarfing any pockets of positivity.
So with Snow White, let's go through this, right? There's no prince. Woman doesn't need a prince.
Oh, Lord.
Really? Okay, good luck back then.
Much of this resentment seemed aimed at Disney itself, a studio whose reputation was already under pressure before this film's debut. The turmoil surrounding Snow White illustrated a larger uncertainty about whether Disney could still blend its hallmark of enchanting visuals and endearing narratives with what modern diverse audiences expect. After watching the final product, observers concluded that the key strength of these classic stories.
It doesn't need a prince to save her, and not surrounded by 7 weird people. Oh, okay, just CGI fictional goblins, I guess.
Their power to resonate across generations had been overshadowed by the film's new direction. Many also questioned the studio's reliance on advanced technology in places where a more genuine human touch might have preserved the original's essence. Post-release discussions repeatedly framed Snow White as a cautionary example of how one of Disney's most cherished classics can become a lightning rod for everything audiences find problematic about the company's current approach.
To go out and badmouth everybody and talk smack about, older movies in the same franchise, the canon story, I guess?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I feel like they would have had better control over that.
While the 1930s animated version is widely regarded as a masterpiece, this remake felt disconnected from the spirit that once charmed fans of all ages. Critics argued that Disney, in trying to modernize the story, diminished the qualities that made it universally appealing for decades. The film's over-reliance on digital wizardry, rather than practical or performance-based elements, highlighted a broader question about whether Disney remained capable of fusing its legacy of awe-inspiring visuals.
This girl took the money and then decided that she wanted to go out there and, you know what, I'm going to take my stand. Well, you should have made that stand before you took the money to promote a film, because that's not in line with your job description.
And heartfelt storytelling with contemporary viewer demands. As box office reports and social media commentary began to roll in, it became clear that the film's changes had not won over the masses. For many, the heavy use of technology stood in stark contrast to the timeless heart that defined the original. A pivotal sticking point was Disney's handling of the Seven Dwarfs, characters who have been integral to the original story's charm.
Right. I think this is their policies coming back to bite them. They went woke.
Yeah.
She went out and said stuff woke that was going to hurt the film. They couldn't come out and go against her, because then you're going after somebody for saying what you say you believe.
According to critics, that choice created a hollow sense of spectacle, undermining the goal of the live-action retelling. While the 1930s Snow White was loved for its enchanting animation, this new iteration simply traded hand-drawn charm for CGI stand-ins that lacked warmth and emotional resonance. Audience complaints, echoed by dismal box office returns, bolster the sense that Disney may have lost touch with the very magic that once made a cornerstone of family entertainment.
But at the same time, I think going forward, they're going to be like, hey, shut up.
Yeah.
Tight-lipped. Otherwise, guess what? We're clawing back some money.
Yeah. This would have been a lot better if they, had a strong male along with her.
By the time the first teaser and clips had circulated online, many potential viewers were already skeptical. When they finally saw the entire film, those suspicions merely intensified. Rachel Zegler's portrayal of Snow White became a lightning rod. Initially, people were intrigued by her casting, yet as she made public statements during a long press cycle, doubts crystallized. She repeatedly dismissed the older animated films.
I think they could have done all that woke shit. You want to cut woke? They could have done all that still. And as long as she had gone out and been like, we just have a different story. I like the old story, but we're doing a different one this time.
You're probably right.
The backlash would have been 10 times.
Yes. You're probably right.
Describing it as outdated and scoffing at the romantic tenor typical of its era. For a sizable faction of fans, these remarks reflected a fundamental disrespect for the creation that laid the foundation for Disney's cinematic legacy. It didn't help that Disney let Zegler's remarks stand largely unchallenged, leaving faithful admirers feeling abandoned rather than spurring a nuanced conversation.
Our primary purpose is to entertain, and where we can entertain responsibly, obviously we try to do that. We try to have a positive impact on the world, but the first thing we need to do is entertain.
The studio's tacit approval seemed to widen the gap between classic loyalists and supporters of a more progressive remake. Matters worsened when Zegler attempted to appear more enthusiastic closer to the film's release. Many who were already disgruntled by her earlier comments found her reversal unconvincing. Scenes from the final cut validated concerns.
Jonah Platt, whose father helped produce the latest Snow White film, had some very harsh words for star Rachel Zegler.
For context, Variety wrote a report recently titled Inside Disney's Snow White Fiasco, Death Threats, Beefed Up Security, and a Social Media Guru for Rachel Zegler.
Instead of a gentler, kinder presence, Zegler's Snow White came across to some as abrasive and overly self-assured, a stark divergence in the character's long-standing portrayal in Disney lore. This contributed to a major thematic shift that many critics said clashed with the original film's gentle nature. The ensuing uproar was about more than just performance or personal bias.
And then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
It underscored the skepticism that Disney could effectively balance its iconic formula of sweetness and wonder with modern sensibilities. Debate about Disney's broader direction became commonplace in the aftermath of Snow White's lukewarm reception. Many critics felt the studio was fixated on cultural commentary rather than timeless storytelling.
So even though woke in some sense feels like it's dead, it still has to run its course through the system. The ghosts have to get out of the machine in essence.
While supporters argued that fresh perspectives are essential for keeping iconic tales relevant, whatever the truth, the final product left a significant portion of the audience feeling the updates were forced and did not achieve a compelling harmony between progress and tradition. This echoed the principal fear voiced by longtime fans, a perception that Disney...
The controversies surrounding Disney's Snow White remake show that we are still in the thick of the culture wars. Oh, have we been following the Snow White?
Actually, the first time hearing of this.
Once a bastion of enduring fairy tales, was pursuing social messaging at the expense of the universal emotional pull that made its stories beloved across generations. Complications also stem from statements Peter Dinklage made before the film's release. He had openly criticized the depiction of dwarfs in fairy tale narratives, including the 1937 classic.
You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work. And
some applaud him for highlighting potentially insensitive tropes, while others point out his own participation in fantasy projects featuring dwarf characters. This dialogue raised questions about whether his stance inadvertently reduced opportunities for other actors with dwarfism. The film's heavy reliance on CGI for the dwarfs and the leaked images that triggered widespread online ridicule only magnified these concerns that Disney's initial attempts to deny the authenticity of these images backfired. Ultimately, the studio acknowledged that the final cut indeed featured computer-generated dwarfs. But by then, the damage was done. Adding to the film's challenges was a noticeably changed tone. The original Snow White thrived on innocence and modesty that made the heroine's journey relatable across eras. Early leaks and subsequent footage of the remake revealed a protagonist who seemed more prone to lecturing the supporting characters than to embracing them with kindness. By the time audiences watched the entire film, many agreed that this portrayal was outright off-putting, with some even joking that Snow White came across more harshly than the villain. Such criticisms harmed the project word of mouth, just when the studio most needed public goodwill. Gal Gadot's performance as the evil queen was another element that had stirred hype, but ultimately got lost in the shuffle of controversies.
This is like an honest golden employment opportunity for dwarves.
There's not that many scripts that come down the pike.
No, only 7 of them.
At first, interview clips suggested that Gadot and Zegler got along well. Later on, rumors of behind-the-scenes tension overshadowed any promotional unity. Many fans perceived a deliberate minimization of GDO's presence in the final marketing push. Observers speculated that conflicting viewpoints or personal disagreements between the leads had tarnished whatever synergy they might have brought to film. By opening weekend, the chatter about alleged friction was nearly as prominent as the chatter about the movie's plot or visuals. Reviewers often label the adaptation a collection of ill-advised choices, from the casting to reliance on CGI. The end result was, by many accounts, a disappointment for a studio once considered the gold standard of imaginative film. The film, intended as a tribute to Walt Disney's groundbreaking achievements in animation, ended up being cited by critics as a display of how corporate decision-making can dilute a cherished legacy. Disheartened viewers saw it as a symbol of Disney's waning magic, an uncomfortable notion for anyone who grew up on the classics. The lackluster box office returns and polarized audience scores only cemented this impression. Snow White, 2025, would be remembered as one of the studio's more conspicuous creative stumbles. Looking beyond the specific production, many wondered if Disney might eventually respond to criticism by adjusting its broader strategy.